Welcome to Naked Faith, where we take off the masks, drop the performances, and get honest about what it really means to follow Jesus. I'm Ron, and these are my amazing co hosts, Grace and Michelle. And together, we're creating a space for real conversations, real stories, and real encounters with a love that never gives up. No agendas, no religious hype, just real people sharing how God met them in the messy middle and pointing to one truth: Jesus still transforms lives. So whether you're walking strong or hanging on by a thread, you're welcome here. This is Naked Faith. Let's get into it. All right. Well, welcome back. And I do have to apologize for not being here last week, but if you haven't listened to the episode yet, you need to go listen to this episode. It's actually very cool, and Raylan joins the battle, so it's really awesome. Although as I was listening to the episode, I was like, I would have been so lost in half the stuff he talked about. I'm like, I don't even know what Kirby is or what any of those things he's.
Yeah.
Guess
it's a good thing that I was there.
Exactly. That's so true. And when you said, hey, did you ever watch iCarly? I was like, oh my gosh, I remember my kids watching iCarly. So that's how old I am.
Yep. That was part of my childhood.
He did a good job replacing you.
Yeah, I think Grace, it's funny because I think my son watched iCarly and you guys are the same age. So I was like, that's probably why I remember iCarly.
Right.
Anyway, all right. So let's get a little serious tonight. And so we're in week 2 of our Gnostic series. And I want to ask you guys a question. Have you seen The Matrix?
Yeah.
Yes.
Only the first one.
Yeah, I've only seen.
Okay, that's the only one you need to see. Okay. So what did you think of The Matrix?
I mean, I always thought it was really cool and an interesting concept, I guess. It's been a little while since I've seen it too, but it's still a great movie, and I feel like I think about it or apply it to different circumstances, I guess, or life things sometimes, or just think about it in different ways.
Okay, so I'm going to hold that thought for just a second. Now, Michelle, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, it's been a really long time since I watched the movie, so I remember bits and pieces of it, but I can't really say for sure what it was about because I'm terrible at remembering movies.
So should I give you a synopsis?
Yes, give us a synopsis.
Okay.
That's a great idea.
Okay. So The Matrix is about I don't want to say it's a futuristic dystopian society, but the concept is that there was an architect who created basically a supercomputer to help humanity. And what they determined was that this supercomputer needed energy in order to run, and the energy was provided by humans. So all of the humans were plugged into the Matrix, and these humans lived in these pods, and this computer just fed off their energy, and the life that they lived was made up. It was crafted by the architect in the supercomputer, and the architect would change the scenarios depending on what was happening and depending on the people. And so in the storyline, there is a group of people who became aware that they were living in a matrix, and they broke free from the matrix. And so they lived outside the matrix, and their whole purpose in life was to teach other people that they were living in the matrix. And the story of the Matrix is there is a character called Neo, and Neo is going to be the most enlightened person, and he knows how to defeat the Matrix. Although Neo doesn't know that he knows how to defeat the Matrix until the very end. So the whole movie is about the beginning. They find Neo, they free Neo from the Matrix, and Neo then throughout the movie learns that he's living in a Matrix, and he learns how to defeat the Matrix. And then the following movies were kind of cheesy after that. But yes, the first movie was the best. The second and third movie were really stupid, but the first movie was phenomenal.
Yeah,
So-
Ron, I was just going insane over here because of the amount of times you said the word Matrix. I was like, it was starting to irritate me to no end.
Oh.
I was
Well, there was a point. There's a point to saying the
no,
Matrix.
I
multiple
know.
times.
It's just
Well.
like you just kept going, and I was like, oh dear God, let it end. That's nothing
So
against you. It's just
essentially-
yeah.
Essentially, have you ever played the game The Sims?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So essentially, it's just The Sims.
Yeah.
Except
Hmm.
it's more real life.
Or, I mean,
I mean,
how
so is
more
The
real life
Sims.
is The Sims?
Well, I mean, The Sims is all cartoonish and, well, yeah,
but
I
it's
guess
just
you're
a
right.
vid-
it
It's
is.
just a video game version of life. You know.
It's true. That's true. It is. So in the movie, and I won't say the name because I don't want to make Grace mad, but in the movie, so okay, so Neo is discovered and he's given a choice. He can take a blue pill, and the blue pill will put him right back into the Matrix, and nothing will ever it'll be like nothing ever happened. Or he can take the red pill, and the red pill is the truth pill. And the truth pill takes him on a journey that some don't survive, which is, what is the truth? So the real question of the movie is, what is the truth? And subsequently enough, the two brothers who wrote the movie were Gnostics.
Well,
and the
they're
movie
sisters now.
is based... Huh?
Isn't
Are
it
they
the
really?
Wachowski sisters? Yeah, they're trans.
Oh, are they really?
Wachowski? Yeah, Wachowski. What is it?
Yeah. Are they really? I didn't know that. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, they've been trans for like 20 years, I think.
Really?
Mhm.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know
maybe-
that. I mean, the movie...
I don't know. I think it was like after.
I mean, it's not
Speed
really that
Racer.
important, but...
So maybe like 15 years.
Yeah, they are. Because on Google, it says Lana, and Lily.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how you spell their last name. Okay, really, it's not important. But the movie itself was fascinating. So my question is, do you ever feel like you're living in a simulation?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, why? Why do you think that?
I mean, the concept of the Matrix is something I feel like I've been living with for years now. Like I've been outside of it in a way for myself.
Outside of the Matrix or
And
outside
so-
of...
Like I'm just aware of, what that life is like. But it's also like any life could be a part of the Matrix. Like it's a whole thing, and it's, I don't know. It's not to be taken like too literally. It's just like the concept of what we know as society today could be just the blanket statement of like what the Matrix is. So
Okay. So Michelle, you said
But,
you
like,
feel like
as-
you've been living in a simulation.
Well, go ahead, Grace. You
Yeah, I was
can
gonna say
finish.
there must be a
I
delay
was
because
gonna
like
say, yeah.
because I did not mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. It was kind of like a second thought that I had paused between.
Okay.
But like more specifically for me, like obviously being a letter carrier, I definitely have days where I feel like an NPC in a video game. Where I'm like, oh, let me do my tasks of
Hmm.
like finding where the lock is. Okay, let me like make sure I deliver this amount of mail in a certain day. And it's like, that feels like having objectives sometimes in a video game. And that's kind of what I deem is kind of the Matrix. And sometimes it's mundane and sometimes it's just like a chill time or can be an adventure sometimes. It really depends. So,
No, I get
Yeah.
that. So Michelle,
That's the direction I was gonna go in. Is sometimes I feel like life is just very like repetitive, but then I also
Mm.
think about like those moments that you have. What is it called? Deja vu, where you're like, haven't I done
Mm.
this before, or is this something I've seen before, or haven't I had this conversation? So those moments, and it makes me think of that movie. Was it Men in Black 3, where there's a character who, when something happened, he would be able to see every outcome of that one situation.
yeah. Yeah, it's things like that stress me out.
Yeah.
That was Doctor Strange.
Well,
Oh, I've never seen Doctor Strange.
You haven't seen Doctor Strange?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
I think a
But I
lot of
have
movies
seen
can
Men in
have the
Black.
same concept. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in the movie, the Matrix was created by an architect. And so now let's start back from the beginning. I did not know this because I rewatched the movie in the last 2 weeks because it's been years since I've seen
Clearly.
this movie.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and the fact that, I knew this was kind of the basis of this next topic, right? Was
Mhm.
talking about a flawed world. And so totally forgot where I was going with this, but it'll come back to me. So this is what happens when you get old. Man, I feel like you ever walk into a room. Oh, deja vu. You said something. Well, okay, so let's start back. I know where I was going. So the movie, I did not know this until I watched the movie the second time, and then I started researching it. And so the movie was based on a Gnostic theory. And the Gnostic theory is that the world was created by a flawed creator, and that there is a higher being, the all, they call it the all, or there's not really a name for it, but the higher being is the real creator of everything, or everything exists because of the all. And what the Gnostics call the demiurge, or Yaldabaoth, is the creator of the universe, and it was flawed because that individual was flawed. And so when you think of the Matrix, the movie, the architect was a flawed creation. It was a software program that was written by flawed individuals, and the software program, and you find all this out in the third movie or third or fourth movie or whatever it was, but like they get to the source of the Matrix, and you meet the actual architect, but the architect is just a simulation of the person who actually wrote it, because that person has been dead for hundreds of years. And so the idea is that the world is flawed, the Matrix is flawed. And so you said deja vu. Have you ever had deja vu? Well, in the movie Matrix, when they have deja vu, it's because something changed in the Matrix. So like there's a scene, right? Neo is brand new to becoming awakened. So they call this, when you take the red pill, you become awakened. You become awakened to the fact that we all live in a matrix and we're all plugged into the matrix. Okay. And so there's a scene where they go into the matrix to go, I forgot what their mission was, but they're getting ready to leave the matrix. And one of the guys who's on their team of the awakened individuals decides he doesn't want to be awake anymore, and he's going to betray the team, and he just wants to go back to the matrix. And so he's working with the sentients. So the sentients are these, like the police force of the matrix. They're the ones that make sure everybody stays in line, right? And they're called Agent Smith. There's Agent Smith, and I forgot the other, but they're three guys, and they can appear in anybody. They can take over your character, your person in the matrix, and become you. And so, and then you become one of the sentient beings just for the period of time that they're there. And so there's a scene where they're trying to leave the building, and they realize that they've been betrayed, and they're trying to get out, because the way to get out is you have to contact the awakened ship, and then they, through a telephone, they bring you out, right? And so as they're walking up these stairs, Neo turns around and he sees this black cat. And then the black cat disappears, and the same black cat appears. And he goes, "Oh, wow, that's really weird. That was like deja vu." And Trinity, his love interest, turns around and she says, "What was deja vu?" And he said, "Oh, didn't you see the black cat?" And she goes, "Wait a minute, when did you see that?" He goes, "Just now, the black cat that was sitting right there." And she said, "Was it the same black cat?" And he said, "Yeah, it was the same exact black cat." And she goes, "Darn, they made a change in the matrix. So now the building was closed off. They reprogrammed the building so they couldn't get out." Right? So in this idea of Gnosticism, we live in a flawed world with a flawed creator, and our job is to get awakened.
Since I've only seen the first movie, I didn't know much about the like background of the architect, and you said it was like the software version of a person who lived hundreds of years ago. When you were talking about that,
Mhm.
it made it sound like the Matrix was like a crappy AI creation, you know, because it's a flawed
It
world.
was. It was.
Yeah.
So there's a scene also where Agent Smith is talking to Neo. Well, I think he's talking to Morpheus. So Morpheus is the guy who finds Neo, and he's talking to Morpheus. They're trying to break Morpheus. They capture Morpheus and they're trying to break him. And he says something about, "Oh, you know, this isn't the first Matrix. This is like the third." And he talked about like what happened with the first two, right? Like what went wrong with the first two, and they destroyed the world and started all over again. So it's just kind of interesting, right? Because if you think about in the Gnostic theory, there are these archons, which are like the sentients, and the archons can enter you and influence you without you even knowing it. And the characters, the NPCs that Grace calls, which is what they are, they're actually called NPCs in the Matrix. The NPCs have no idea that they've just been inhabited by the sentient. And then they act like the sentient. They do the things the sentient want them to do because the sentient entered their body, but they have no control over that. They can't stop it, right? So they don't know what happened or who took over. They just know that they're doing stuff that is not, well, actually, they don't even know. They don't even realize that they're doing these things because the sentient takes over their mind, takes over their body, and starts doing things. So in the Gnostic theory, this is what the archons do. The archons are the 7 powers of the ego. And where we heard that before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene.
Gospel of Mary Magdalene, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Michelle, your brain is spinning at 100 miles an hour right now.
I can't, and this is terrible to think, but it does relate to like today.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know why this thought keeps coming to my head, but essentially, us regular peons are just the NPCs where we have this higher up political party are the ones that are controlling us.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if you want me to crack open one of my conspiracy theory books, I can do that because that exactly addresses what you're talking about, right?
And I mean, that's actually what I feel like I'm going.
Okay. Well, interesting you say that. So, and I know we don't want to get political, but you are absolutely 100% correct. Right. Well, again, this is Ron's view of the world, right? So we all know that I'll be the first to admit I'm a self-admitted conspiracy theorist. I believe that there's some evil stuff going on in the world behind the scenes that we don't know about.
No,
and they're controlling everything
at this point.
Well, right. And okay, so it's okay, good that you said that, Grace, because there's a belief in the Gnostic community that we are being awakened. And right. The NPCs are starting to see what the archons are doing. And we're starting to see where the flawed creation has been controlling us and hiding information from us. Like we chose to ignore the things that were happening, and now we're being awakened to the things that are happening, and we're actually all starting to fight back. And it goes into what you just said, right? Like all the people that drank the Kool-Aid for the last 6 to 10 years are now starting to go, wait a minute, this isn't right. Like the stuff that, I put all my faith into a political party and you're not telling me the truth. Mm-hmm. And it's becoming evident every day, right?
Right.
Like I think more and more people are starting to wake up and say, wait a minute, that is not like, that is not what you told us was going to happen. That is not what you said we were going to do. That is not, and then you start to question everything. Like, I think we could all say that for the last 10 years, we've all probably started questioning everything a politician, and it doesn't matter what party you belong to, but anything a politician says or does, there's a hidden motive there. And it's not our interest that they care about.
Mm-mm. No. Yeah, it's like it comes in waves, like the awakening, because there are definitely people 10 years ago who could have told you all this was going to happen, because of who's in office. So it's just, And it's just like interesting to see like,
And
okay, where's everyone's final straw that like, okay, we actually have to do something and it's not okay. Because like, I don't know, mine was like at least 5-6 years ago. Well, actually, maybe even 10 years ago before I could even vote. And I just remember both elections like being super pissed the next morning, and yeah, that was yeah.
I think I'm going down that route because, well, as we're recording this tomorrow, Virginia has a huge vote
Mm,
um, that is kind of crazy, kind of,
what is
you
it?
know. So they are redistrict, or they want to redistrict the voting lines, so
Mm,
it's more one party than the other party.
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm.
I guess essentially what everyone's saying is gerrymandering, which we know is
Yeah.
not legal, but you know. So I think that's why I'm going.
There's a lot of things the government is doing that aren't legal, but it doesn't seem to matter. So
Yeah, it doesn't seem to matter
um,
anymore.
true.
yeah, no.
True. Okay, but
So-
It's
No,
been a
you're
dumpster
true.
fire for years.
yeah. So I'll tell you my journey. Like this all like I mean I guess I've always questioned. I mean Michelle, you've known me from your whole life, but I've always questioned the things that go on, right? Like I've never really been a true like one party or the next, right? But I think what really kind of where my awakening started happening was probably around the 2020 timeframe, and it, you know, because it became personal for me. It became personal when the fact that you know my son, senior in high school, and he now all of a sudden is not going to have his graduation. I mean, the one thing you look forward to as a kid, he is not going to get to experience what it's like to complete that chapter of his life. And he will never, ever get that back.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, like, and again, we can talk about what COVID did or what it was, but let's be real. It was a super flu. And again, I'm not saying that it wasn't dangerous or that, you know, people died, but never in the history of our world have we shut the world down for a flu. I mean, we've had worse diseases and we never shut the world down. And the fact that the entire world shut down, not just for 2 weeks like they told us, it was shut down for a year. For a solid year, you could not move from your location without having some sort of stupid passport that said, "Oh, I had my temperature checked over here," and "Oh, I did this test," and it was all ridiculous. I mean,
Ron, you're
Listen.
stepping on a line that I cannot cross right now. I swear.
no,
to
I'll
God.
tell you how. I'll tell you how. Like, no, here's my experience. Right. So, 8 months or so after the pandemic started, I think maybe I don't know how long it was, but we're going to go on a family cruise, and you know, in order to go on the cruise, you had to have a COVID test. You had to do the thing to show that you didn't have COVID. Now, one would think that you would do this when you showed up at the pier to like take the test. No, you can do that a few weeks ahead of time before you go take the test, before you actually get on the cruise. And you're thinking, okay. So then they said, well, in order to speed up the process, we're going to do it online. So you're going to do this COVID test online? Like, yeah, we're going to send you a kit in the mail, and then you're going to log onto this website. There's a nurse that's going to observe you taking the test and read the results, and then you're good. I was like, for real? So now imagine that we're sitting like this talking to this person, and each one of us had to put our face in the camera and swab our noses and put them in the little, like, show her we're putting it in the thing, you know. And then she's like, okay, set them on the table. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Because the thing took like 10 minutes to incubate, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, okay. So she turns the camera off. Now she has no idea what we're doing for that 10 minutes. She comes back on the camera 10 minutes later and she says, okay, one by one, I need you to show me my test. Show me your test. Now I said, you know, I didn't say this to her, but I said to the family, you know, you could just take the one test that's not positive and just show that one 4 times. And because she can't see the tests on the table, she can only see them when we hold them up to the camera. Yep, there's mine.
Mm-hmm.
And then my wife would hold up hers. Yep, there's mine. And it could be the same exact test. And I thought to myself, this is not real. This is not real, right? Like, I cannot believe that this is where we're at, right? Like, if we were that really concerned about spreading this illness, wouldn't we really have tighter controls? But that's not really what I want to talk about. What I wanted to say was the awakening. To me, that was the moment. It was, that whole year was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that we, like, how do you get the whole entire world to shut down for a year? Like, that's what really was boggling my mind, right? Like, and I said, like, that's when I said,
it was just like, it was a collective trauma and illness. Like, everyone was affected by it in some way. And I don't remember how much the UN was like involved, but I feel like once countries officially announced that they were shutting down, like, more countries followed, so for the safety of everyone.
I will say, never in the history of the world have we had a pandemic like that shut down the world. And we've had pandemics like Ebola, which like had a 90% mortality rate to it.
But that didn't,
and we
spread
didn't
as
shut
much
down
as COVID did.
It doesn't matter. It was classified as a pandemic. We didn't shut the world down for that. So my point is not to really discuss the points of whether COVID was that bad or not. My point is how do you convince the entire population to shut the entire, we're talking 8 billion people on this planet, to shut down the world like that, right? So I think it goes to what you were saying. Are there things in the background controlling the matrix and us NPCs are just playing along we're playing into their hands? Here's another example I'll bring up. The division that happens. Why is it that you can take a certain topic and create so much division in the world about this topic, when in reality, I don't think most of us really put that much thought into it, right? Now, you said, for example, we're talking about the movie The Matrix. I did not know that the Wachowski brothers became trans. Like, but why is that a big deal? If that's a choice that they make in their life, why is that a big deal? And why should we ostracize these people because they made that choice in their life?
Yeah.
Right.
But we do.
I remember seeing,
right? We make it.
One of the sisters talked about how doing that movie actually helped them realize they were trans.
And it's okay, right? Why do we have to make this a big deal? And why do we have to, like, why are there leaders of the world that are like calling them nut jobs and calling them crazy and whatever, right? Like, have you walked a mile in their shoes?
Yeah. You don't know, like, the struggles that they have gone through or what
Exactly.
got them to that point or anything.
Right. And I guess I always say, just because I don't understand why they would, I'm going to be careful how I say this because I don't want to offend anybody, but just because I personally can't understand why you would think that you were born in the wrong body, it doesn't mean that they're wrong. Does that make sense? Is that a non-offensive way to say what I was going to say?
I guess, yeah. It's like the least offensive way you could say it, I think.
Yeah. Why? What makes them? Go ahead.
What would be the right way to say it?
That's such a layered conversation because I know, like it's where do I even start with that? It's a whole thing. Like, yeah, because there's people who are intersex, which means they have, reproductive cells or organs of either biological sex, and there's at least 20 variations of that, and it's like that doesn't even really get included in the trans, community necessarily. Like, it's not necessarily, it is something that's labeled in the community, but again, that's just one layer to it. Like, there's when I think about the Matrix, it's so binary because of how they perceive gender and sex. Whereas like there's a whole spectrum of the human experience, and that includes people's gender identities. So it's like
Yeah.
I feel like people try to make it too literal with like biological sex when in reality it's so much more spiritual and bigger than that. But again, I am a cis woman, so like I can't speak to that. But I
Right,
know,
right.
you know, I've done enough research and education of my own to at least try and figure out, not figure out, but just learn more about their experiences. Because again, we can't speak from firsthand.
Right, exactly.
Right. And I guess a better way to say what I'm trying to say is, what does it matter? They're human beings
Right.
and they deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, just
Mhm.
like the rest of us.
Yeah.
I guess that's
Well,
what I'm trying to
yeah.
say.
Yeah, no, yeah, that totally, I get that. And it's hard to do that when the people in power don't really treat anyone with respect or dignity that is different from them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But okay, so that's my point, right? So like if you were trying to, if you created a flawed world and you were trying to control the masses of the flawed world, right? And you had these sentient beings that could infiltrate the masses and change the mood, right? What better way to keep the population from uniting is you
Mhm.
got to find things that divide them.
Right.
And so when I say there's an evilness, there's an evil, like even before we started this Gnostic discussion, I believe that there's an evil spiritual realm that is manipulating people.
Mhm.
And the hate and division that we have is because of these spiritual beings needing to be in control. Here's an example. Here's another thought-provoking question. Is hatred a learned, or are you naturally born that way?
I feel like we've touched
I
on
think
this a little bit in an episode.
Yeah.
We have touched on this a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's a learned behavior.
Yeah.
I do too. I think it's absolutely learned behavior. I mean, you look at kids, and you know, kids can play with anyone. It doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter what they act like. It doesn't matter. I mean, you don't start learning to be awkward until you hit puberty. But prior to that, it's like, you know, we're all the same, right? Like, so they don't learn. And even then I would say the awkwardness that puberty isn't really like, I don't want to say it. I don't know when, like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe. I don't know when you like, when did these biases against certain individuals or certain groups of people start entering into your mindset?
I mean,
I don't know.
it's-
And where
it's
does it
hard
learn
now
from?
because- right. It's hard now because the internet is always and forever. Like it's just always
Mm,
there.
Yep.
And so many kids have so much access to it, way more than any generation
Absolutely.
has at such a young age that it's like
Yep.
even worse.
Yes.
Because there's no regulation on that in any way. But before that, I mean, obviously, like I just think about the progression of radio and television and like what was shown on TVs, and even depending on the area that you live in, what's on TV. But yeah, I mean, I think the most part it's mainly maybe what like parents have said around their children, and so then children kind of adopt that mentality, and could also just be interacting with people at school and how people treat other people. I don't It's very weird. It's very weird.
And also, I think along the lines with the whole internet thing, the people that you hear or like the perspectives that you hear on the internet are usually the loudest ones, and those are the ones that you're going to listen to. Like, you're not going to listen to just a regular Joe Schmo on the street. Like, you're going to listen to the ones that, you know, that are influencers
Right.
over.
So if we bring this back to our faith-based conversations, because I did kind of lead us down a really big rabbit hole.
Yeah,
But-
we did.
Yeah. And so, you know, if we go back to like, what are the tenets, right? The two greatest commandments are love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. And I think this is the one thing that I've like, what does that mean? Like, to me, that is one of the most powerful statements that people should ponder every single day. What does it mean to love your neighbor as yourself? Like, what kind of unconditional love is that?
Right.
Like, okay,
Yeah.
so let's take this back to the Jesus story, right? Like, and again, I'm going to tie this back to Gnostics, but if you believe that the resurrection, if you believe that Jesus came to die for our sins, we can talk about that all, like, but anyway, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But if you believe that Jesus died for our sins, then, and you believe that Jesus was divine, that's an unconditional love that I don't think people take a moment to grasp and think about. Like, would you die for 8 billion people you don't know? And not to say that Jesus didn't know us, but I'm saying, like, I'm asking you today, if there was a choice, Michelle, you could save humanity, but you have to die.
That's a hard, question, because then it brings up the fact, like, how do you love people the right way? Like, you can, you can say, I love humanity, I'm going to die for you or whatnot, but is that really the right answer to that question or to that situation?
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a very deep.
It honestly makes me, It honestly makes me think of COVID, because all those people died for humanity. All those people died, were maybe tested on, people offered up themselves in order to be tested and experimented for vaccines, or however they did the trials and stuff. It took a lot. It was a lot for everyone. I just don't think people realize the magnitude and scale. Like, it was global. I think I remember seeing a statistic of, like, the amount of people that died during 9/11 was the amount of people that died every single day for like 6 months straight. Something to that effect. That, I think we forget about that sometimes. I think I know we were talking about it earlier and we don't have to keep talking about it, but it's just talking about COVID in general is something I could talk about for hours, of like what we went through and how it's affected our society, even to this day. Like,
so I want you to
yeah.
I want you to consider for a moment. Just go on this journey with me for a second. What if it was all planned?
By who or what?
By the evil spiritual cabal. What if it was all planned? What if it wasn't an accident? What if it was intended purposefully to see what would happen?
I mean, at the time and still now, I always kind of think of any almost natural disaster as like Mother Nature's way of retaliating for how she's been treated. And I feel like the fact that so many people got sick and were dying, and that meant the world had to shut down, we saw what the earth looked like without humans affecting it. It just felt like a knock on the door reminder from Mother Nature of like, hey, take care of me or there won't be anything, or you won't. I mean, like, the earth can get on just fine without humans, as we saw during that time. But I mean, the more natural disasters we have, the more that Mother Nature or God or the demiurge, whatever you want to believe in, like, that could be considered the great floods of the Old Testament. Any natural disaster that comes destroying communities that don't deserve it, like, that could be a higher being retaliating for the way humans have acted. Anything can be interpreted in any way. Like, yeah.
So I've had this thought for the last probably week, and part of this journey that we've been on has really started making me question things more than I really used to normally question things, which is, I know it kind of sounds weird because I always question everything, right? But I think where I've struggled is, like, I think we talked about this the last time we were the three of us together, which is, what if everything you knew was not the truth? Like if it was made up as a method of control. Okay. So if I take the Gnostic idea of higher consciousness, we're all supposed to be awake, and we all have the divine spark in us. We all have this ability that we were created to be divine. And what Jesus came to teach us was not necessarily to die for our sins, but to teach us how to be awake, to achieve the consciousness that we could escape the prison, so to speak, that we're in. And so what I've been learning is, just like mainstream Christianity and Judaism, there are different kind of sects, I guess, so to speak, in Gnosticism. And although there's only like 4 major ones, so there's not like 500 that you have in Christianity, but there's different like kind of thought processes, right? Like on what the awakening really means. And so, but one thing they all kind of talk about is that this world that we live in is flawed. It was created by a flawed creator, so therefore the world is naturally flawed. It's inherently flawed, and that's why there's suffering and misery in the world. And I have struggled with that kind of concept my whole adult life. Is like, and I drank the Kool-Aid, right? Like, okay, well, and as Dr. Shapiro last week was trying to explain to us, like, oh, well, we have to have suffering in the world. And I didn't really want to get into a big debate because we probably, by the time we brought that up, we had like 5 minutes left. And so this is one of the things that I have struggled with, right? Like, why, if you have this all perfect creator, then why is there suffering in the world? And so just go on this journey for a second. I am going to make a point here, but what if the all really does exist, the essence of everything exists. And, if you read the Gnostic stories, we do know that the aeons that were good and whole, Jesus or the Christ being one of those, wisdom being the other one, and there's another set of pairs, like there's, we talked about that, but they influenced the creation of the world without the demiurge knowing that. So the demiurge is unaware that there are higher beings than the demiurge, and the demiurge thinks that they're the only being. Like, so if you take the Old Testament, right, there is no other gods above me, because the demiurge believed that they are the only God, not knowing that the Christ and the Sophia were influencing the creation. But what if this world was not actually created flawed? And what if the awakening is for us to learn what unconditional love is and reclaim what is rightfully ours?
And what is that is rightfully ours?
I believe it's this realm that we live in. So here's why I say that. Because in the Adam and Eve story, God gave dominion to Adam and Eve, dominion to rule over this realm. And so I, kind of looked up, what does that really mean? What does the dominion mean? And it doesn't mean that it's like, it means to take care of, right? To take care of and be the steward of this realm. So it goes to what you're saying, Grace. Like, if we are charged with ensuring that the world is a safe place to live, and we know that the earth is supposed to provide us our food and it's supposed to provide us our things to live, then we should be taking care of it.
Yes.
And so, right. And I don't think we do a very good job of that. I mean, look at the pollution in the oceans, look at the pollution in rivers, and, I've been on this journey of finding like holistic food sources. And so one of the things that I started researching was bread. And, if you buy bread from a store, it's made with modified wheat that has a higher gluten content. And this has been around for like 100 years that they started doing this. Prior to that, it was unmodified wheat. And so like, here's what I'm trying to say. When you start looking at these things, right? Like, here's this unmodified wheat, and the wheat that I've been using is called einkorn, and it's the oldest known wheat to man that's not been modified. And, you know, I've been making bread out of that for the last probably month. And it's a learning process because it doesn't work like the flour that we see in the stores, right? You gotta like the last couple of loaves I've been, you know, if you over knead it, it crumbles, right? So like there's a whole learning process, right? But I started thinking about, you know, here's this wheat that hasn't been modified and it's healthier for you. And so every time that we, man, try to make things better for society, there's a whole bunch of health problems that ensue from that. So, you know, in the 100 years that we've been GMOing the wheat to make better crops or faster crops, that's why they did it. They modified the wheat germ to make faster crops, but it changed the structure of the wheat, right? Mm-hmm. And so now you have people that we have a uptick in gluten sensitivities, stuff we didn't have 100 years ago. You know, I mean, other diseases, high cholesterol, low protein, people, you know what I mean? And these are all things that the wheat provided for people. And so now you say, oh, you can't eat bread because, you know, diabetes is another thing, right? Diabetics can't eat bread because there's so much sugar content in it. But guess what? If you take this unmodified wheat germ and you make bread from it, it has a lower glycemic index than regular bleached flour. And whoever thought bleaching flour, like anytime you think of bleach, do you really want to ingest bleach? But no, but they bleach our flour.
Right. I was going to say, I saw a documentary last week called Tough Old Broads, and it focused on 3 older women, like retirement age, and they're like well-known women too. One of them, she was like a Canadian like governor or senator or something, but she was talking about how, you know, when there's pollution in the water and that's in like the food and whatever the animals ingest is polluted, and then we ingest the animals, it's like we're poisoning ourselves because there's poison.
Exactly.
That's what it is. And it's just
absolutely
it's like devastating and heartbreaking. I'm like, but yeah.
My dream is to have a whole like homestead, like live off the land type thing.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Well,
I think
okay, so I was interesting because we went.
That,
yeah, absolutely. Well, we were at Disney yesterday, and a lot of people laugh at this ride, but I don't know, Grace, you ever been to Disney World?
Yeah.
But there's a ride there called Living Off the Land, and it is it's not a fast moving ride, but Living Off the Land is all about like you go through the first part, and it's like this, you know, they talk about like why storms are important, and you know, like all these different things, like how the America's heartland was once a desert wasteland and now it's an abundant, you know, like how the storm, like all this stuff, right? But the last part of the tour is they take you through this like area where Disney's been doing different like growing technologies and things like that. And one of the things they said, which was really profound to me, was they created these greenhouses where they introduce these bugs that are natural predators to the things that eat our crops. So like the apids and the other things, right? But the bugs themselves don't destroy the crops. They eat the other bugs. And so by doing that, they can reduce the number of pesticides that they have to put in.
Right, yeah.
Right? Okay, so parlay that with another story. When my son was younger, he was in Boy Scouts. He didn't last very long in Boy Scouts, but one of the projects that we did was Weeki Wachee, which is up near Gainesville in Florida. And it was a like restoration project. So Weeki Wachee is one of the natural springs in Florida. And it used to be crystal clear. Huh?
I said they have mermaids.
They used to have mermaids. Yes, they did. But it used to be a natural spring, and it was a very clear, like beautiful spring. But the spring itself has been reduced in size. Well, the clearness of the water has been reduced in size because of the pesticides that we use to spray. Now, hold on, I want you to follow the story. So we started spraying our crops with these pesticides to control the bug destroying insects. When it rains, that pesticides roll into the land, and then they roll off into the rivers, which feed the aquifer. All of Florida's water comes from the aquifer, which is now polluted with pesticides that we've been spraying on our crops. And so then I go back to yesterday. So are you telling me there are natural bugs that eat the bugs that destroy our crops? So we could just introduce those back into our farming methodologies, and we wouldn't have to pollute our environment with pesticides? Well, doesn't that seem like the more way to do things than like you said, Grace? Like, because I'm now drinking poison water. I'm watering my crops with poison water.
Right. It's like, I feel like there's so many what seems to would be like a simpler solution, an easy solution, but then we just like don't do those things.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So go back to the flawed world conversation. Are we living in a matrix? Are we living in a simulation? Right. And so, like, I mean, we brought up a bunch of different, like, and did you ever just sit back and think, like, is this really real? I mean, I know I do. I mean, I do a lot. Like, is this really real?
Right. I have the belief that, how do I even explain it? Like, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. I feel like that's a pretty common phrase. And so whatever spiritual being that we are, wherever we come from, whatever happens after death, like, I feel like human life is just kind of like one elongated dream, And then so once we die, we kind of like return to whatever consciousness that is, So
do we ever get to wake up from that dream?
I mean, that's what death is, I think. Yeah, I don't know, because then it's an interesting concept though, because we still dream as human beings, so it's like it feels more meta, or is it like we're returning to that consciousness, or like what even is it? There's so many things we don't know, and yeah.
So all I heard was I probably got to live another 40 years in this messed up dream.
Well, I mean, we're trying to like fix the system that is the matrix of our current reality. There's a lot going on though. So
take the red pill. When Morpheus shows up, take the red pill. Don't take the blue pill.
Careful, you sound like every like podcast bro.
Well, listen, I highly recommend that if you go back and watch the movie. Like, it was very, especially in light of the conversations we've been having about Gnosticism or Gnostics, right? Like, it puts a whole new perspective on the movie, and it also puts a whole new perspective on life, right? When you start thinking about, like, oh my gosh, could this really be, like, could we be living in the Matrix? And it, you both have said, yes, you think sometimes we live in a simulation, right? Like, and to me, it was kind of opening now knowing what we've talked about over the last several months, and watching this movie again and going, oh my gosh, there are so many profound things that were said in this movie. And to know that the writers of this movie were Gnostics, and they hid a lot of these messages in this movie, was just like, it was mind blowing to me. Like, you're like, oh, wow. Yeah. There you go. I could see that.
Yeah. I'm not sure like how literal you are thinking of the Matrix, when we think of like living in a simulation. Because I would say that, mainly the kind of capitalist society that we live on is just like the Matrix as a whole, of like how
I think he's going all in.
Right. I'm like, I don't know how deep you're like perceiving I think he's the all Matrix. Yeah.
Here's some quotes from the movie. What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's part of the human experience, being able to be present with your senses.
But what is your soul?
I mean, I'd say
How
your
do you
soul
quantify your
is what
soul?
makes you don't I mean, it's not something you quantify, Ron. Stop trying to like put everything into a box.
But so that's my point though, right? So like, how do you define the human soul? You can't, right? Like, can you point to where your soul resides? No,
Yeah.
you can't. I mean, they can identify every organ in your body, but they can't identify where the human soul resides.
Right. Yeah. But I was gonna say, for both you guys and those that might be listening or watching, if you don't know, Neil deGrasse Tyson has his own podcast. I think it's called Star Talk. And there's a whole episode where he has Lawrence Fishburne as a guest, who's the actor who plays Morpheus in The Matrix. And I'm pretty sure the entire episode, because it's been a while since I've watched it, the entire episode is just them having like a philosophical conversation about how The Matrix is the story of Jesus Christ and Christianity. So that's that's like a whole conversation. Yeah, because I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson, since he's such a scientist, he's mainly considered himself to be an atheist. But then the more he thinks about religion or spirituality, and then like relating it to the Matrix, he's like, there's got to be something. I don't know, but yeah, it's like that's a whole other episode if want to get deeper into that Matrix conversation.
Yeah.
I'm going to convert you two yet. We're living in a simulation. Anyway.
But how do you define that, Ron? Because I think everyone has their own definition of it.
Well, it's okay. So it's interesting you say that, because I did read this article. I probably should find the article and send it to you too. But it was a guy who, and I think the title of the article was, "Are we living in a simulation?" And I mean, he was a faith-based author that wrote the article. And all right, so I'll answer the question for you. What do I think the simulation is? I do believe that there is a world that exists outside of what we're experiencing. Now, what that world is, like I've said this before, I think there is a spiritual realm and there is the material realm. I don't believe that our natural habitat is the material realm. I believe that our natural habitat is somewhere in the spiritual realm. And I believe that we are here to figure out how to get out of the material realm. And I think that's the awakening. The awakening is when you realize that this is not our home, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can agree with that one.
Right.
This was not how we were supposed to live.
But like in what way? Because you say material realm, that's very broad and general, because that's like the entire earth, So like, what do you mean when you say like, I don't know what I'm trying to ask, or if you understand what I'm trying to say.
No, I understand what you're asking. And I think the way, like, okay, I'm going to use a couple of references here, and I don't believe to this extreme, but there's a TV show that just came out on Apple TV called Pluribus or something like that. And so I don't know if you guys have seen this show or the premise of the show, but
I know a little bit about it, but I haven't seen it.
Okay. So these scientists discover this code that it's like a radio signal coming from that was being bounced off the moon. And they first discover this, and they first are trying to figure out what this code is, right? Like it's some sort of alien signal, but they don't know what it means, right? Well, then one of the scientists, in a moment of brilliance, discovers that it's a formula for a vaccine. And so they spend the next year trying to make this formula, this vaccine, right? And what this does is it turns everybody into the collective conscience, except for 12 people. Mm-hmm. There are 12 people who aren't affected by this. So they all think they know each other's thoughts. They're all functioning together as a unit, except for these 12 people. And then there's the main character is the one, she's like an angry angry cat lady, right? She just it's a comedy, but it's funny, right? Because she's questioning everything. And so like she, you guys are psychopaths, and what freedom do you really have? So to answer your question, I do believe that there is some sort of collective conscience in that. I don't think that we're all one mind. I do think that we're all part of one collective source, and that, your struggles are my struggles, if that makes sense. And that
Mm-hmm.
the humanness is being able to empathize with what you're going through and actually be affected by it, if that makes sense what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mhm.
when you're suffering some tragedy in life or something that's upset you, right? Like, I think the consciousness is being able to recognize that you're going through something and being there to walk through that with you, and having the empathy to be able to not, I don't want to necessarily say experience it with you, but to know what you're going through, if that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
without
Yeah.
judgment, and so that's where I think the consciousness comes into play. The consciousness is, it's not about my ego, it's not about me self-serving myself, it's about the unconditional love for humanity. And that, going back to what you said, right? Like when we talked earlier, we all are going to have different experiences, and we're all going to have different things in life. And what does it matter? Because you don't think like me, or that you're different than me, or that, you know what I mean? If that really
Mm-hmm.
makes sense what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, we're all humans, and everybody deserves to be treated with love and respect.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think you basically just defined the matriarchy, you know? Like being able to
Yeah,
walk
probably did.
through something with someone else. Yeah.
Well, I agree. And I think, this goes into
Mm-hmm.
some conversations we've had before about your, divine feminine and your divine masculine energy, right? And I do think that there are people that are not in tune with their divine feminine energy, because I think that's where the empathy comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And mothers are the greatest example of what intuition and empathy are, in my opinion.
Yeah, I get that. I think there's a lot of different avenues for it, but I definitely get that, being a mother, having to attend to a child, raise a child. Yeah. There's something, what was I going to say? I don't remember. Oh, well.
You're not that old, Grace. You can't forget things like I do.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. It's late. That's my excuse. It's getting late.
Yeah, there you go. That's true. It is late. We need to wrap this up, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
anyway, okay. Well, we are at an hour, and
Mhm.
this was not quite exactly where I was thinking we were going to go, but never do they ever go where I think they're going to go. So anyway,
I mean,
Never a dull moment.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I never know where you expect it to go. So I'm just. I don't know. Having a conversation.
yeah. Well, it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So
Alright.
I forgot what I was going to say. So go ahead, Michelle.
Okay.
Oh, I actually do. I actually do remember what I was
Oh.
gonna say. It was just
Okay.
like a little quick thing of like, because you were talking about how people don't have the divine feminine energy within them, and I think
Mm-hmm.
a good example of like a healthy man, I think, in his own energy, like for a man to be a healthy masculine kind of energy, because I'm sure we know there's a lot of people out there who just don't exude or embody that. It's just a man who is able to be more in touch with his emotions, being able to express those and share that, because that's a part of the human experience. And when you're just suppressing something that's such a big part of the human experience, just like the spectrum of emotion, when you're able to fully embrace that, I think society will go much longer way, maybe.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you like this episode, you can hear more like this on Spotify or YouTube. If you want to chat with us, we are on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok at Naked Faith Podcast. And if you want to hear the afterthoughts of the episode. We are trying to be more known on Substack, so come join us there and read what we thought about the episodes. And then you can email us if you have a question or if you want to join in on the conversation at nakedfaithpodcast@gmail.com.
Great.
Absolutely.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
thank you for listening or watching, and
Yep.
we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.